Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1359 of our daily content grind. It is the 1st of June, which means it is time once again for our monthly Q&A video. Everything you have been asking me for the last month is about to be answered in the longest video I do every single month. So if you are new to this, I can't imagine who is new to this by now, but here you go. There is a list of rules that we keep here. So number one, we need short, punchy answers. So do not give me, come up with entire casts or create an entire story concept. We need short, punchy questions for short, punchy answers. Number two, one question per person. If I see people doubling up, I will start deleting your and ignoring your questions. If you have a comment, please mark it as a comment so that we do not get them confused, because we have to go through these as quick as possible. I've got to focus on just the questions. And there's a few topics we don't talk about anymore, which is Gundam, because I have no opinions on Gundam. Gun Megatron, we've talked about this a million times. I'm done with it. And the new one now is I don't need to validate your fan creations. So, don't use me as, a sounding board for your story or your fan art. If you want to do it. As long as you're enjoying doing it, you're doing it right, and it's fine. Okay? So, all that out of the way. And also keep it TOS friendly, by the way. I will just flat out ban people if you try asking something that's not within TOS. So, okay, now, with all of that said, we begin with the first question, the newest question on the list. What do you think we'll get first? New Energon figures and new Transmetals? I mean, technically we got a core class Energon Megatron. Technically. I feel like it's going to be Energon figures, but I feel like it's going to be the Decepticons. It's going to be Megatron, probably as a leader class at some point. It's going to be Starscream as a, probably Voyager at this point. You know, Deluxe would work, but Voyager would be better. That's the back door here, right? Because they are just normal Transformers with, flip-out weapon gimmicks. That's fine. They can replicate that in modern engineering without springs or anything. If you mean, actual power link combiners or Transmetals, probably they'll find a way to do... They'd probably find a way to do Transmetals first, because I feel like some of them are easy to do, like Cheetor's alt mode is just cat with little wings. I feel like that's going to come first, because they know there's a higher demand for Transmetals. It's just a matter of engineering the third mode attached to most of them, which that's where it gets tricky. You've got the toy side of Transformers covered well, so have you given thought to doing more videos about Transformers lore and history or character bios? I do lore from time to time still. The character bio thing, I've thought about doing that, but it gets into Chris McFeely territory, and that feels like I'm treading on his gimmick. And I have tried just straight up character bio videos. They don't do well. And you'll notice on this channel, especially now that I'm trying to balance both the channel and Magnetar, I am kind of struggling. I'm doing a lot of videos that are much more for me, that are, that are not really algorithm friendly. At some point I need to do things algorithm friendly so I actually can make ad revenue. If everyone pitched in $1 and doubled my Patreon every month, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd do whatever videos I wanted, but for now, I am beholden to the algorithm and YouTube's ad revenue system, which frankly is kind of balls, but I need to make sure the channel makes money or I can't continue it. So I have to do the things that make views. I can't do too many things that kind of bomb. And unfortunately, the bio videos kind of bomb for me. If Red did one more fig, who would you want? For me, it's G1 Frankenstein Bot. Do you mean Autobot X? I'm assuming you mean Autobot X. That would be a good choice. For me, the more memorable one is probably the Marvel comic Ratchet Megatron fusion. It would be horrific. It would give people nightmares who saw it in the toy aisle and had no context behind it. But it's also one of the most iconic visuals in Transformer history. I kind of want it. I kind of want that. Do you think the new frame style combiners could be repainted into homages, random name drops for the GoBot Power Suit combiners? I mean, you could technically make the Power Suit combiner work with that. The trick is how to make the arms work, because I don't think the power suits will be able to split. It's a novel idea. You do have to realize that it would take re-engineering, because a lot of them have the combination on the back of the leg rather than the front, which is where you would need to see the power suit. I believe if the photos we've seen so far of how Bruticus works, based on like artwork and the instructions for Vortex, it looks like that one is going to be a little bit more toward what you're thinking, because he has to have his bots attached to the front of the legs. So I think that's where we're going to end up seeing what you're thinking of. For now, maybe not, but we'll see how Bruticus turns out. Do you think a figure like Animated Safeguard will ever be made again, or do you think the engineering is too much for Hasbro's current budgeting? See, the beauty behind Animated Safeguard is there really isn't a whole lot of like unique engineering to it, because the jet modes are just mind-numbingly simple vehicles. You know, it's their arms come up like this, their legs fold up, and that's pretty much the entirety of the vehicle. Like, there's really nothing to them. That's how they were able to do so much else. So, no, I do think we would see a figure like Animated Safeguard again. If they wanted to do homage to Animated Safeguard, I feel like it's absolutely doable. What you'd see, however, is both of them released as individual deluxe figures, with one being the retool of the other. You wouldn't see them grouped together like they were before. Do you think you would ever do Bayverse in the Chuck style as in movie universe Ironhide and Age of the Primes? I don't see it happening in Age of the Primes, because I feel like Age of the Primes is completely taken up between 13 and combiners. Throwing in random movie characters in G1-esque style is probably not going to happen now. Now, they are absolutely going to want to tap that nostalgia, and that is a direction they could go in. I'm not sure they're actually going to take that direction, or even if you do it in Generations. That might be a weird Studio Series concept thing. But no, there's absolutely room to do that, and I'm sure there's an audience that would actually like to see what those designs would look like if they were in a more traditional style. As a fellow Technobot fan, would you have you liked to get Ironclad as a new member back in Combiner Wars, aside from Scrouge and Cybax? I will admit, I can't remember who Ironclad is offhand. Hang on a second. I actually do want to research this really quick. Yeah, beauty of my current 2-monitor setup is that I can do this really quick here. Okay. Okay, based on earlier Hasbro plan for Combiner War Combutron, initially intended incorporated Ray Deco of Deluxe Class Rook. I think I'm okay with what they did. The Rook mold is fantastic. I love that mold. I don't think it's necessary to make like a fake Computron piece out of. I don't think it's okay to make a fake Technobot. You didn't really need it the way they ended up releasing it as a box set, though. If the Technobots went to normal retail, I could... Well, here's the thing. If the Technobots went to normal retail, I still don't think you would have really seen it, because the Technobots don't suffer the problem the other combiners do, which was variety. They needed something to mix it up. You know, they didn't need any replacement figures because everything is already very different from each other. You know, that's why they did, like, off-road, because they wanted a truck in there, because otherwise it's an entire wave of cars. Same with Alpha Bravo, entire wave of jets, so we need a helicopter in there just to give some variety on the shelves at the time. You know, so I'm not upset over Ironclad missing out. I don't feel like I need him. We all know that Brave borrows some TF toys from their toy lines, making them new characters. but is there a Brave toy that you would like to bring over to TFs? Personally, I would love Dryas. I don't know Brave well enough to really figure that out. The first one that comes to mind is Volfog, because Cybertron Hotshot is loosely based off of his design in the first place, so that would make a really cool homage if we could do that. And that just opens up third-party companies to make a big Volfog too, and that would be incredible. What are your current thoughts on Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I remember your initial opinion, but since it's been a few years, it's over now, and people began to like it more as it went on. I still hate the concept, and I still hate the art style, so my opinion has not changed, because there's nothing that makes me want to actually engage in that show to see if I would like it or not. It's just putting me off to the point where I'm not gonna check it. I'm really not. Recently rewatched TF Animated. What are your quick thoughts on Thrust Armada? Armada, what's your quick thoughts on Thrust character? Like, dislike, indifferent, where do you rank him within the series? I think Thrust is a kind of a B-class character. Like, he's like a Unicron fanboy. It's like he really wants to be a herald of Unicron, but never really earns it. I feel like Thrust is a character that's meant to pose a larger threat and never quite does. I wish he was a little bit more credible. So he'd be like a B-list character for me. You know, like, he's fine, but I feel like they missed out, and I feel like they came up short on him. How would you redo the Primus Vanguard for US continuity? I would have to look up the Primus Vanguard in order to know exactly who is part of it. So, unfortunately, no. That's, and again, you're coming up with it. You're asking me to redo an entire cast of characters. So that is not happening here. Just to confirm. Just to confirm. Okay, yeah, like, yeah, we're talking about all of the Primus Vanguard is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different orders of Transformers, all of which contain multiple members, a bunch of members, and all led by their own primes. This is a perfect example of the kind of question you really should not ask. Quick, punchy questions for quick, punchy answers. So, like, this is the kind of thing you would have to, like, literally pay me on Patreon to do, because that's just an enormous amount of work and a lot of research that would have to go into that. Are there any names from the Japanese side of Transformers that you thought were better than the American one? For example, I always preferred Cybertron Destron over Autobot Decepticon. Not especially. Like, I mean, there's things, there's characters I like better. There's names I like better. You know, like I like the name Noise Maze better than Sideways. Though admittedly, Noise Maze doesn't mean a whole lot. And Sideways is just like, I don't like naming a character Sideways because now you always expect them to be the turncoat character. You know, like, it just sets an expectation. I think they've kind of ruined that name in that way. Noise Maze just sounds more interesting because, like, there's kind of an enigma to exactly what a noise maze even is. Yeah, and I will agree with the comment below. Broadcast is kind of a better name than Blaster. Now, I get it. It's because he's a boombox, but still. That's another one where I have to, like, really think about it or really come up with, like a good list of, like, names, you know, like, Land Bullet's cooler than Crumple Zone, right? If Prime woke up in a classic fantasy world, example, old Final Fantasy games, what do you think he would turn into? I think horse-drawn carriage, and it's my birthday. Happy birthday! As far as what he would turn into, it really does depend on which fantasy world he ends up in. Because there are fantasy worlds that have some level of tech. You know, like old Final Fantasy games, he would probably turn into, like, a train. Because they did have trains in, like, Final Fantasy VI. You know, games like that. They had, like, steampunk level tech that Prime would likely be based on. I don't recall many horse-drawn carriages in, like, old Final Fantasy games. And granted, you're talking, like, any kind of fantasy world kind of thing. It is very difficult because there aren't actually any, like, large vehicles for Prime to turn into, is there? Because the thing is, if he turns into a horse-drawn carriage, he'd have to turn into the horses. The horse would have to be Optimus, and the big carriage would have to be Gray for his trailer. It's an amusing idea, but I think, end of the day, I think I'd just like him to turn into, like, a fantasy creature, like a dragon or something. Do you think a video of possible sequel ideas for Transformers 1 is on the table in the future? I mean, potentially, yeah, we could discuss that. Though, honestly, I'm not sure there's many options for that. It's obvious that a sequel would involve the Quintessons returning to the planet and trying to overtake it again. I don't know what you do beyond that, unfortunately. So, like, that's again would take a lot of thought. But, yeah, like, it's definitely a possibility. We could absolutely discuss that at some point. If you sometimes buy figures from secondary sources, pre-owned, private sellers, etc., do you remember a figure that you had the worst time buying, but still really wanted to get, so you went through all the troubles anyway? It doesn't have to be a Transformers figure. The worst buying experience I had through a private seller was the guy who tried to... The guy who tried to pin me as a thief. He claimed that we had met up in a parking lot in Disney World so I could get a whole bunch of Gaim toys off of him. He used photos of me from a convention to prove that I had received the toys, even though I had receipts from the toys that from the shops where I had actually bought them from. And his story just didn't line up. His story didn't line up in the least, and he couldn't bring any kind of credit to it. He couldn't tell me, you know, was I alone? What car was I driving? Did we meet at his car or my car? He didn't give me any of that. He didn't give me any of that. So, yeah. The guy tried to, yeah, and I did a whole video on him. The guy tried to, like, basically run me through the mud and claim that I was some kind of thief. That I basically, like, tried to force these, and he did it with, like, fake screenshots of DMs and all that too. Scummy person, and got a lot of updates on how scummy of a person. Last time I checked, he's doing jail time, and not for what he did to me, but for other things he got into. Yeah, I'm glad he got, yeah, I basically, yeah, he messed with the wrong person. I basically ran him out of the entire community after that. If Transformers had continued as part of the Marvel Universe in comics, do you think any would have become an Avenger or part of another team? Maybe they would have sought out Tony Stark instead of GB Blackrock, maybe go Galactus versus Unicron. Galactus versus Unicron is like the most obvious thing they had the chance to do and just never did it. The trick about, like, you know, Transformers becoming Avengers, it really just kind of depends on, like, who fits the roster of the Avengers at the time. You know, and that gets tricky. That gets really tricky. You know, because I'm not entirely sure, like, who on the roster they would actually go for on that one. I mean, yeah, like, it's weird. It's like, it's hard to turn, because, like, Avengers are usually, like, mostly A-tier heroes. I don't think Optimus would become an Avenger. Like, maybe a reserve member. Optimus would be, like, a reserve member. I don't know. That's a really hard one. That's a really hard one. Honestly, I think the answer is I don't think any of them would have become Avengers, because I think no matter who you picked, it'd probably be awkward. How do you depict a Transformer in, you know, at the meeting room in the Avengers Tower? But there's definitely more story crossover potential they could have done if they had actually stayed in that universe. Which Autobot from the Unicron trilogy would you like to be brought back in a future series? I mean, if I have anyone to pick from the entire Unicron trilogy, like, do I just name a Cybertron character? do I say Hot Shot and upset everybody? Like, I thought you hated him. Like, honestly, Hot Shot's not a bad pick because I always think he deserves a chance to have a better toy and a better characterization. But if I'm making like a personal choice, it'd probably be either Armada Sideways, despite what I just said about the name Sideways. Or, oh, who else was really good that I really liked character-wise, who I really like? Maybe Cybertron Scourge. Because he had a really good characterization to him. Like, I like that villain with an honor code thing. You know, I don't know, like, there's a lot I could pick on that one. Those are the two that jump to mind. Do you think Bumblebee would like the Bee movie? It depends on which Bumblebee. I don't think the original Bumblebee would be into it. Maybe Prime Bumblebee. Prime Bumblebee seems to have that sense of, like, the more juvenile sense of humor that movie takes. Instead of light piping, do you think Hasbro should chrome the eyes a la HasLab Omega Prime? I think it would help at least to keep the figure from looking dead. I don't like chrome as a solution in general, because no matter what you do, chrome always has a risk of easily scratching, chipping, flaking, that kind of fun stuff. And then, of course, if it's badly coated, like a lot of Transmetals and the Beast Machines line, you end up with just like a bunch of flakes falling off of your toy, which I think looks worse than the bad light piping. The answer to light piping has been with us for a long time. It's Universe 2 Inferno, and I bring this up every chance I get. Clear plastic, I know, me, hear me out. Clear plastic as the light piping, and then just a pearl coat paint that's translucent over the eyes. So the eyes have like a brilliant blue or red color to them, but the light piping still works as well. It's a perfect solution, and they've only done it once, and I'm very confused why they only did it once. So that's your solution. I don't think chrome works, though. Ever have an OC in mind for the longest time that you wish you could materialize into the TF franchise? For me, I've had... so I don't OC a lot anymore when it comes to Transformers. You know, like, I talked about the fanfic I was penning for Beast Wars, which was all mythical creatures, and what my original pen name of Omegas Prime meant. You know, and I kind of think back to those characters once in a while and go, you know, I actually designed how they transformed as well. And that would have done that would have made some really cool toys. Once upon a time, there was an auction site that tried to be like a Transformer-only auction site alternative to eBay. It didn't work. But the guy had his main, character that was like the mascot of the site, and he wanted someone to design a villain, a rival. And I don't even remember how I'm the one who got in touch with the guy. I don't even remember how we touched base, but I ended up designing the rival, which was Humvee based. Really cool looking character, I thought, and there is an actual profile picture of the character, just a headshot, done by Guido Guidi. So Guido Guidi has drawn a character I designed, at least from like the neck up. I kind of wish that character would have, I kind of wish that had all panned out so that character could have gotten out there, but it is what it is. If given the opportunity to bond with a Cybertronian or a Transtector, which method would you choose? Headmaster, Headmaster Jr., Target Master, Power Master, or God Master? I honestly, out of all of those, probably prefer the... I'd probably prefer the Headmaster Jr. version of that. I wouldn't want like a full Headmaster Headmaster thing where it's like a large, like I'm just sitting inside of like a large mech suit. You know, I like the idea that the Headmaster stuff is just armor that's over me, you know, and then figure out how my knees bend backwards for that transformation without breaking my legs. Target Masters and Power Masters I think would be lame in this case. God Masters are basically still Power Masters. You missed out Brain Master. Brain Master wouldn't have been bad either. How likely is it that we see Dragonstorm from The Last Night in the future? Because it's such a cool idea. It's such a bad movie. So the problem is, like, a proper Dragonstorm would need a lot of individual figures combining into the dragon mode, which that would be really, really rough. See, they tried to do it with just two. The original Dragonstorm toy was only two robots that transformed into one big dragon. And even that wasn't very good. So try to imagine that with how many, actually, like how many of those Night Transformers combined into that dragon. And now you're doing it in Studio Series, presumably, where they try for accuracy. That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna fly. It'd be a cool idea, but you'd have to reimagine it, which is not what Studio Series would do. So, unfortunately, I think that one's probably not viable. See, why are modern Transformers packaged in robot mode? So, simple answer to this one, they wanted to sell the character rather than the vehicle. Yes, the character appears on the packaging, but they wanted people to be able to see the character that they were buying in the store. You know, like, this is what the robot looks like, without being, like, artistically licensed like you see here on the packaging. Simple as that. Simple as that. They thought it was better to market the characters rather than, you know, what they transformed into. And I honestly don't disagree with that. You know, trying to imagine, like, modern Transformer toys, and, like, every Optimus Prime that comes out is just another red and blue box truck in a box. It does feel like it would just, like, start feeling very same-ish every single time. At least when I see them in robot mode, it's easier to tell the differences. Do you think people move on from figures too quickly? And if I can expand on that, do you think it is a symptom of us having too many Transformers coming out? I feel like new things come out, people talk about it for like a week, and then they move on to the next, completely eclipsing the awesome figure they just got. So, the best ones, people do still talk about. You know, we still talk about 86 Optimus Prime. It's still a really, really amazing figure. When it comes to, like, the standard stuff, the Voyagers and Deluxes and all that, it probably is just the fact that they are coming out so fast that we just kind of, like, play with it, move on, and then go, ooh, new shiny thing. Ooh, play with this. You know, for instance, you know, I will admit I do it too. You know, like right now, my desk toy is the Earthspark Thrash, the only one of the new Deluxe Wave that I've actually been able to find. I still need Hashtag and Soundwave. But the previous Transformer to this, and this is still on my desk, but it's far more neglected, it's over here. I actually grabbed the Naruto crossover because it did look neat. You know, I'm not big on Naruto. I kind of peeked into it once in a while. I never followed it. But the overall design looked really neat, and I like the novelty and the extra frog character that came with. So when the Thrash came in, like, I kind of forgot about the Naruto. And I will fully admit, as I'm recording this, tomorrow I'm anticipating the first Wreckers versus Mayhem pack to come in. And the Spinisters, whatever, but it's going to have that red top spin that I've been wanting for literally years now, because that's one of my favorite figures of all time, and I like the color scheme on it a lot. So yeah, Thrash is probably going to start getting ignored in favor of the top spin. You know, that's just, so yeah, it is because things just come too fast. You know, we are designed, we are like, the internet has designed all of our brains to go very quickly through media and consume very quickly and be done very quickly. So it's a little of a lot of things. And also, thanks for being one of the best TF content creators out there. Thank you. Thank you. On average, how many jobs would someone need to buy every Transformer Generation figure Hasbro produces? So, I mean, I guess between YouTube and the toy shop, I have 2 jobs. Technically, Magnetar does make money on Twitch now, so that's technically 3. But, you know, I keep up with Generations pretty well with the 2 jobs. Now, again, it really just depends on the job, right? And it really depends on how else you spend your money and what else, you know? you know, if you're buying a lot of like junk food or takeout, obviously you're not going to have as much money for your hobbies. If you're, you know, and then just depends on like regions. That's a very loaded question. That's a very loaded question, sir. There's a lot of things there's a lot of factors there. Do you think the following format would work for HasLab? Every year they prepare 2 or 3 options to us and we vote. The winner becomes the next HasLab for the year, which would have a normal production run for about a year, like what we have with Titans. That way we keep the crowd engaged, but don't twist their arm with FOMO. So I don't think, and I just did a whole video about this, I don't think HasLab being a limited time thing is actually a bad thing. Yes, there's FOMO involved, but like here's the thing. FOMO is involved in literally everything they release. Literally everything is subject to FOMO. That's how collecting works. And honestly, you get a month and a half for, you know, to actually afford, you know, actually to figure out how to afford any particular HasLab. I understand a lot of people are tightly pinched, but I don't think that's an unfair span of time. Personally, like, I don't like the idea of it having a normal production run because that does kill what would be special about it. You know, you are looking to create a special collector's item here. I would think maybe expand the window to 60 days rather than 45. But the part I do like is the idea of giving us options to vote. That way they can be sure that what they are putting out is something that fans genuinely really, really want. And that way they have a way of like charting feedback of like, well, no, this should just be a Commander or a Titan. Things like that. See, of the ones you've played, what is your favorite Mega Man series? The favorite series is probably the X. I will acknowledge that after X4, they start going downhill. Even though I say that, my favorite is X1. But it becomes noticeable, because, you know, Inafune was done with that franchise at 5. And then Capcom insisted on a 6, and I think 6 is a terrible game. Everyone knows 7 is a terrible game. And then 8's fine. 8 is fine. But yeah, it's probably still the original X series because I like the variety, I like the characters, I like the designs, I like the gameplay better than the other ones. For me, let's see. Anyway, been enjoying getting back into your videos recently. Congrats on Magnetar and the daily streak. Thank you very, very much. Welcome back. What is your favorite Shinkalion? I only own one. It's the Dark Shinkalion, which has like the Centaur mode, the Super mode, like it does a whole bunch of stuff. That one is super cool. What is your favorite G Gundam mech? Oh my god. I mean, purely from a design standpoint, it would either be Dragon or Master Gundam. But I will admit, I really, really like the stupid ones. I really like Windmill Gundam. Like, maybe the dumbest Gundam design they've ever done. G Gundam is lovely, as it has that, like, in a very Street Fighter way, that just, like, that little touch of, like, cultural stereotyping. In all the designs, because Japan is different about such things. But no, like, I like the dumb ones. I like the really dumb ones. See, if you don't like a comic, would you say that you had an issue with an issue? Oh my. Sir, if I could summon lightning on you right now, you have no idea. Fortunately, I am not Zeus. Here's my question for the month. What do you think and want future generation capsule lines to focus on? I'd like to see an Animatron or Eucharis line with beast figures like Fox Kids repaints, Cyberverse Thunderhowl, Cryotech, other Onyx Primal. So, for me, I would either want a capsule line that focused on, like, toy exclusive repaints of stuff that we haven't gotten. Like your idea of cryotech, yeah, like it's kind of super weird that we have not had a cryotech out of that Transmetal 2 Megatron yet. And that mold's been around for a good while now, and we still have not gotten the obvious repaint. I would take that and I would come up with like a list of like all these different repaints that the Beast Wars cast could have been, but never actually came out. You know, base them off the Fox Kids repaints, base them off of like some of the more weird ones. Like you could absolutely get away with some oddball stuff. That would be fun. Honestly, if I had my choice of what a Generations capsule line would do, I would take all of these modern figures of characters they did for BotCon exclusives, and I just do a whole run of BotCon exclusives. You know, we got the Motormaster as a general retail release. Just start picking out molds and doing it. Just do it, you know? Come up with it. Find a BotCon theme that you can just do like the entire year's worth. It's just a capsule line at Walmart. You know, every year a new BotCon theme of toys comes out. You know, that way you can actually get a hold of like Dawn of Futures Past inspired characters or games of this, or you know, like Game of Deception characters. It's that kind of thing. Let's see, the Bayverse Transformers crossovers with a Monsterverse. How would a human alliance between Monarch and Optimus Prime as Autobots be like? Probably about as distrusting as Optimus Prime and Nest. Especially because it is Bayverse. I think the fact that the Transformers are a lot more kill crazed in the Bayverse would probably endear them a little bit more to Monarch as far as like quelling the more violent beasts. That would be again one I would actually have to think about a little bit more. Be honest, it's been a hot minute since I saw any of the Monsterverse movies besides the last one they did. So I would probably have to re-watch a couple of them before I made a call on that. Yeah, that was a tough one to come up with. Let's see, if the current Transformers and Star Wars crossover does exceptionally well, do you think there's a chance of a new full line of Star Wars Transformers, similar detailing instead of what was released back in early 2000s? It wouldn't be a full line. I don't think we're ever going to see a full line again, because I think one of the reasons why that line turned out so bad is likely because the line just tried to do too much at once with designs that really weren't made with transformation in mind. You know, I think some of the more recent ones, like the Mandalorian that came out, I think had a lot more focus to them, and I think that was a strength, because they could just focus on making one of them really good. Same reason why Takara came up with a much better Darth Vader than they did here in America. Things like that. But more importantly, they know go slow with the collaborative stuff. Don't do a full line. And honestly, we've got too many Transformer lines going as it is. We don't need to throw another one in. Also, they're doing micro vehicles for Star Wars now. That would really interfere. How would you feel about the idea of a TF series reusing human names for newer human characters? I frequently do this with Boss. We only have only redone it before with movies and the wiki names. So we do have a new Spike and Carly in the current comic book line. So they do reuse some of the characters, but yeah, like it's been we haven't gotten a kicker. We haven't gotten a kicker since Energon, or any of the Armada kids, things like that. I wouldn't mind seeing them again. Like like you said, they reuse those characters all the time. They never reuse the human cast. But at the same time, there is something special about the fact that every series does have a unique human cast. You don't need to constantly bring the humans back. And it gives you unique design element, right? It gives you something new for the story rather than literally everything being patterned after, a previous series. So I think it's actually maybe for the best. I think it's actually maybe for the best that we actually have it this way. You know, I think I kind of prefer coming up with a new cast every time. Both Disney, Pixar, Elemental, and Transformers 1 are good movies, despite what the marketing might have implied, and it first seemed like both could have failed at the box office, and yet word of mouth and international markets saved Elemental, while TF1 couldn't be saved. Why do you think that is? Simple, and we've talked about this before on the channel. I think the audience is just fatigued of Transformer movies, and I think the audience has been burned too many times by bad Transformer movies. Like, Pixar still has a reputation of good films behind them. They've been struggling just like anything Disney has been struggling lately. But for the most part, like, I think they still keep a good pedigree of what they do. Hang on, this is something really wants to fall off of my desk. There we go. So, yeah, I really just think it's just audience fatigue. Too many bad movies in a row coming way too fast, and Lorenzo Bonaventura doesn't read the room very well. Audience has made it clear they just don't want Transformer movies right now, and you need to give the franchise a long enough break for people to miss Transformer movies in the theater. That's where real money for the movie franchise is. If you want a movie to profit again, you need to give it a break. Simple as that. If you could add a new core bot to the Wild King toy line, who would you choose? So we got Optimus and Megatron, right? So I think Grimlock would be a great choice. Aside from having the bulk to actually work for that, you would also have the element of like, oh, well, here's a big dinosaur to go with all the little dinosaurs. That's actually kind of cool. You know, just give it a little bit of variety, you know? I think that's the easiest one there. I'm trying to think of like if there's another like big one, like Rodimus Prime would be neat if they did it the right way. Like if they did it Titanium way, where his trailer became his robot mode, so he was like big and bulky, so he could do those combinations. That would work too. So I would take either of those. What would you think of a Titan class Land Cross? Or a smaller Titan, but more complex and with higher budget, allowing all the play features. So you might get away with that, depending on how you engineer that. The thing about Landcross is his lack of complex engineering is how his gimmick actually functions. I'm not entirely sure if you try to modernize those toys by making them, you know, cartoon accurate, or making the vehicles more pleasant to look at and all that, I'm not necessarily sure they would work as well. I'm not necessarily sure you can make them look good and also still make that function. So you'd really have to choose your priorities on that one. I'm not sure a Titan is the way to go about it. Keep in mind, Titan combiners only work if they all share color schemes. Because the way it works, the only two we gotten, Predaking and Devastator. The only reason that works is because all these different characters can share molds, and that way you're keeping the cost to a minimum. You can get all these different toys in the same box as a result. When you're talking about Landcross, all of them have unique colors, and every time you see a unique color on that toy, a new mold has to be made to mold those toys in that color. So what you're talking about is actually way more expensive than you realize, because it's doing so many molds in order to create the designs and characters. So you have a big hurdle on that one. A big hurdle to making Landcross a Titan. I don't think it would work because there's just too much involved in that one, unfortunately. Knowing you like Marvel and Transformers, what Marvel character would make the worst Transformers crossover? The worst Transformers crossover Marvel character. Oh my god. I mean, there's a lot that would be funny. Get Squirrel Girl, who literally turns into a squirrel. That would be good. I'm trying to think of like ridiculous, like Mojo. Like, what would he even turn into? Dude, he's just a fat, naked executive on a crawly chair. I wouldn't want him. Or MODOK. What would you turn MODOK into? He'd be like a headmaster. You just plop him on your Fort Max. Oh, crap. That's actually not a bad idea. I don't like that now. I don't like that now. Okay, moving on. Moving on. I've horrified myself. How would you introduce a newcomer into Transformers? I feel like Transformers is easiest to introduce to kids, but a bit tougher for adults, especially with the abysmal reputation live-action movies gave the franchise. The answer, if it's an adult, is Transformers 1. It's the easiest, quickest media to take in, and it's really, really good media. It's not like the original origin story, but it's enough of an amalgamation to get everyone acquainted with like the backstory of most things they could watch, you know. Yeah, TF1's a great spot. If I want to sit them down and like introduce them to a series, Transformers Prime. And what's going to hook them in immediately, and this is the entire reason why it was designed this way, is hearing Dwayne Johnson in episode 1. It's like literally the first thing you hear is The Rock. And a casual, a brand new one, a brand new person to the franchise will go, oh my god, it's The Rock. The Rock is in this? And then he gets killed within the first 10 minutes. And now the person really loathes the Steve Blum Starscream. Now they're invested because they want to see Starscream get his tail fins rearranged. There is how you introduce someone to the franchise. It's a great hook. For a casual audience, it's a fantastic hook. Let's see, which mold from the original Diaclone or Microchange lines do you think would have a good choice for the lead villain of the Transformers other than the one they chose? We've answered this before, and honestly, I don't think there is one. I think they made the best call they could. Anything other than this, they would probably have to go to like the older Diaclone stuff where it's like spaceships and all that. And that wouldn't really fit the aesthetic that Transformers went to. Like out of the Diaclone and Microchange they came up with, I think everything lined up where it should be. I can't imagine any other character or anything actually being like the leader of the Decepticons. Do you have any Showa era favorite Sentai mecha carrier? I'm not really up on my Showa era Super Sentai in general, let alone their mecha carriers. So unfortunately, no, I don't have an answer for you. Let's see, would you say the Transformers live-action movie scores by Steve Jablonsky are underrated since they do not get talked about much by fans? I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know, like everyone, like the movies are scored very, very well, and I don't think enough people do talk about that. Though everyone talks about, what is it, the arrival, like the music that plays when the Autobots are first landing in the 07 movie. Like you talk about like what's the best bits from the first 3 movies, it's that one, because it's a very epic song and a very climactic moment. Let's see, okay, moving on. Yeah, like Skybite Bites, please mark your comments as comments, so like because I'm trying to get through the questions as quick as possible. What's your favorite design for Prowl? Torn between Earthspark or animated? Both really good. I do like how Earthspark Prowl turned out. I'm trying to think here, like the War Within design was also really, really good. Like it's a really powerful looking Prowl. It's a shame the Titanium came out looking so bad. Jeez, that's one of the few Titaniums I never got to really experience. It just looks like it's a horrible toy. It just looks really, really bad. I'm trying to think if there's an outlier. Like, there's like a weird Prowl that I'm not thinking of. You know, honestly, if I'm just coming up with like, this is a character named Prowl, and I think they look really, really cool. RIDO1. The Autobot brother Prowl, because you know, one, it's a Lamborghini police car, already cool, but also I think out of all 3 the car brothers, I think he has the best design. He's got this samurai look to his kibble. He's got this massive, like, double, like, missile launcher flamethrower thing on his arm. Like, the Autobot symbol and the exhaust coming up over his shoulders look cool. The wide shoulders look cool. The head sculpt is cool. That's a super cool design. That is a super cool design. Have any of the previous HasLab figures had as many issues as the current Omega Prime to your knowledge? No, not even close. So, the most frequent QC issue we've had with any HasLab before this was Victory Saber. When you combine the Core Star Saber jet onto the V-Star unit, there is a potential for scratching up the chrome. You can mitigate that or just be careful about that. But that's like the most widespread. There are other QC issues people have reported on some of those toys, but they were far more isolated. You know, it isn't something that was widespread. You know, like I have my HasLab Star Saber. He's perfectly fine. I've not had a single issue with that toy. For Omega Prime, no. Nothing that has ever been this bad or this widespread. And we're still finding out. Patriot Prime just posted a short about that toy. It has yet another problem, apparently. See, so, okay, two-part questions are okay as long as it's, like, run on and it's, like, the same, it's just carrying the same thought over. If we were to get an updated version of the Micromaster Transport Overload, should he be a brand new mold, and what scale would he be? Or should he just be a repaint resole of some version of Optimus Prime figure? I mean, it is similar to an Optimus Prime. I would keep it small. Like the toy itself would have to be like, geez, it's a shame that we don't have this anymore. I would probably make the toy like Voyager sized, but the toy inside itself would probably be like a small deluxe, and the trailer would take up the rest of the budget, and the trailer would be large enough for like core class cars. So, like, things like that. Yeah, that's probably the best bet that I've got. And probably, yeah, it would probably be a retool of Optimus Prime, if only because it's such a minor character. I can't imagine them coming up with a brand new mold, especially when they already have to do the trailer. You know, if anything, it might just be an Optimus retool without a trailer whatsoever, honestly. And then just release it as a deluxe. Who would win a race? Sonic, the blue Blur, or Blur, who is blue? Or would the universe collapse in on itself before there could be a victor? So, Blur for a Transformer is extremely fast. However, nowhere near as fast as Sonic. Absolutely nowhere near as fast as Sonic. Yeah, like, that's not even a competition. It's the Hedgehog. See, if they made a new Cybertron Optimus Prime as a HasLab or a Titan, do you think it could surpass the original as your favorite Transformer figure, or is there just a charm to the OG that's unbeatable? The OG is always going to have a charm to it, because I feel like a modern version would go for more animation accuracy, so it would lose that heavy chunk to it that I actually really like. That said, I was gifted the third-party one at TFCon, which I'm looking at. It's right over to my right on my shelves. And don't worry, for those who missed the story, it's completely fixed. He did a lot of work to repair it before he gave it to me. It's fully functioning. I have transformed it more than once. Everything's intact. Everything works. But that one goes for animation accuracy, and it is absolutely flippin' gorgeous. If they could recreate something like that, if they could do like Commander Class or Small Titan, a Cybertron Optimus Prime, and it incorporates modern engineering, like the articulation level, the tilt, angle tilt, and all that, on top of just, like sleeking it down just a little bit, it would have potential to surpass the original as my favorite. But it would still have to feel as good as the original. That's the thing. The modern one, no matter what the size, is not going to have the same solid feel, because You know, you're talking about Transformer toys that are, at this point, like 2 decades apart from each other. They would definitely have a difference in the feel. The original would be more solid no matter what you do. So you have to make sure it feels as good as possible. That's the key. If Hasbro has tasked you with taking the G1 Micromaster molds and making repaints of them as classic G1 characters, who would be first on your list? And someone has already mentioned Overlord as a repaint into Optimus Prime. Overload as a repaint into Optimus Prime. So, admittedly, I have not looked up I'm not a big Micromaster guy. I'm not big on Micromasters. Let's put it that way, so we can be funny about it. I would literally just have to over-examine every single mold and figure out exactly what they would end up as in order to come up with a feasible list. Because not a lot of Micromasters look like G1 style characters. Like, all of them kind of have their own build and their own shape and design to them. So it's not as easy as it sounds. You know, there's very few that would be like good, like, oh, I can just repaint this and it would look like Wheeljack. Not really. Not really. That would take a lot. This is again coming up with like something that would take a lot of time and a huge list in order to come up with. So this is again not really appropriate. But this would be a very, very difficult one to come up with, if I even knew Micromasters. I'll tell you what I would think of. I believe it's Space Shot and Blackout, the big Concorde jet combiner. Yeah. If there was a modern, Darkwing and Dreadwind, that would work for those two. If all you want is first on the list, that would be first on the list. Do you think Double Dealer and Swindle could work together as business partners? They would both work as business partners together, but they would also be looking for as many ways of cheating each other as possible. So I don't think it would be a long-lasting business. What's a random bit of nostalgia you have? Example, McDonald's styrofoam boxes or those large wooden playgrounds. I have a lot of just like random bits of nostalgia, just things that I miss. I understand that it would probably take at least a week of my life off, but I would sacrifice a week of my life to have one more Ninja Turtle pie. I understand it's just cheap pie crust filled with vanilla pudding that doesn't spoil or curdle at room temperature, and then just a really thick coating of icing that's green. You know, I understand it's not a difficult thing, but I miss those things. I want another one of those things so bad. If Hasbro wanted to update GoBot Puzzler Combiner and ask you what existing molds you wanted to repaint, retool, which ones would you pick? And would you update Pocket in any way differently? Weirdly enough, even though I own a complete puzzler, I don't know who Pocket is. I don't know who Pocket is. So the trick here is that the only options you really have would be the Stunticons. You know, they're literally the only ones that are designed for this. You could potentially get away with doing them as the Combiner War molds. That way they aren't using the armature. They actually are making up the arms and legs. That would be a lot more true to the original. You obviously wouldn't use Metasaur or the core. You wouldn't use Motormaster because I think that's the worst torso in that toy line. But you could play with that. Like, that's your room to come up with like the 2 new middle ones. There's ways of doing that too. I would probably tell them to create some kind of trailer to like fake it, you know, so like make the torso, you know, like a trailer that turned into like the torso and the pelvis section, and then you just like slot in the other 2 cars, they form extra elements to it, so I'm like combining Combiner Wars and the current like skeletal combiners. If Energon Optimus Prime Wing Saber became a HasLab project, gee, I wonder why everyone's thinking of HasLab right now. Then should one of the gold tiers be a second Wing Saber figure? This way people can have an all red or all blue color scheme for the combined mode. You would never get that because the added cost is so much more. Keep in mind, when you hit, like, when you see the price of a HasLab, all the stretch goals are already baked into that price. They are. So when they, but like 80% of the price is in the toy you're getting. So if you got a Wing Saber in this Optimus Prime, that's like, you know, like you're talking about 30% of the value of that product. You're not going to include a second one because it would raise the price of that set astronomically. You know, and there's people just wondering, like, why are we getting two of the same toy? Because keep in mind, yes, you could have an all red or all blue color scheme that way, but at the same time, you're going to have a lot of leftover parts that you can't do anything with. You know, like you've got 4 blue sections when you're in all red mode or things like that. So ultimately, like, it's extraordinarily inefficient. So yeah, like, we are, like, right now we are, like, for deaths, for Lyo Kaiser, we're getting a 7th figure as a stretch goal, but I promise you that was already baked into the $300 price. I promise you that. So that's literally the only way that you're actually going to get an extra figure, and I don't think it's going to be any bigger than that. Like a second Wing Saber, no, that would be completely unviable, unfortunately. Which do you think happens first? Hasbro starts doing Transmetal figures. They finish a Beast Wars 2 Beast Wars Neo roster. So I will give a similar answer. They've already started doing Transmetals. It's called Megatron and Tigerhawk. But I know what you mean. Honestly, probably the Transmetals, because, you know, the Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neocast are so obscure here in the US. Much as I would love to see, like, a modern Kurata or Long Rack, I genuinely don't think Hasbro is going to have much interest in doing that. Takara might, but Takara is also apparently the hurdle when it comes to Transmetals, because Beast Wars Metals didn't do well over there. And I think Beast Wars 2 and Neo did better. You know, obviously Beast Wars the second did better because they did Beast Wars Neo after that. So you might have some leeway there, especially because Beast Wars second is mostly just re-releases of US toys. Like, a lot of them are in the same color scheme, so they'd all be like the US versions over here. You know, it wouldn't be Tasmania Kid. It'd be Snarl. Well, we got Tasmania Kid over here. Never mind. What am I talking about? You get my point. Would you like to have... Okay. I am seeing this name keep popping up with just different names at the end. I can't tell if they're the same person or not. Since it's a silly question, I'm going to skip it, and I'm going to remind everybody 1 question per person. If I think you are doubling up, I will start blocking you from the comment section. So please follow the rules. And admittedly, like, this might be a different person because I think the lettering at the end of the name is different, but everything else is exactly the same. I have read that same name earlier today. Could you scream Engage Sentai Ring, please? No. Because it's 3 in the morning, and I am already struggling to keep my voice alive through all these questions. So screaming is an absolute no. I apologize. Maybe that needs to be a rule too. Nothing like Dance Monkey Dance. Like, nothing like that, because it's not cool. Who else are you hoping to see in Studio Series from Transformers 1, since we have listings for next year? I mean, I believe Arachnid's on that list. That was like my major one. I think, as far as I know, we're getting pretty much everyone that interested me. Like, there's a lot of background characters you could eventually do. Other Seekers, obviously. I can't remember if Soundwave or Shockwave are announced. Like, that would be really cool. Other primes? Other primes might be fun. We know that if Hasbro ever did a Star Trek collab, they'd do an Enterprise. I'm wondering, though, which Enterprise do you think they'd use? I think you would have to be narrowed down between the original Enterprise, the movie refit Enterprise, or the Enterprise D. All those would be too obscure. The only ones that I could see, not even like the movie refit Enterprise, it would either be the OG or it'd be Enterprise D. And I'm telling you, it's probably going to be Enterprise D. Not only because the nostalgia of it is a little bit more recent and palpable, but, you have, like, it's in that perfect nostalgia range of, like, 90s kids grew up with that, and they're the ones collecting Transformers now. That's perfect for them. But also, because of the saucer separation gimmick of that ship, it opens up the chance to not only recreate that in this, potential Transformer toy, but incorporate that into the transformation. Because, like, the trick to that is the warp nacelles being, like, stuck out, which is why you don't do the original, because those are extended out on sticks. The D actually has those wide bridges between, like, the core of the ship and the nacelle. That gives you a lot more room to work with. Engineering wise, it works a lot better. But yeah, I can absolutely imagine, like, the saucer section becoming, like, part of the body, and then like becoming like the arms and the legs and leaving the torso open, and then your like your battle section, like that would transform into like the core chest and the head. You slap the two together. That'd be super cool. I think that would make the engineering a lot easier too. See, if you could only pick one Dome Racer Transformer idea of yours to become a reality, which one would it be? I've come up with so many ideas, like, for a Dome Racer. I'll be honest, I can't remember them. I honestly can't remember them. Oh my god. That's actually hysterical. I've come up with so many, they all blur in my head. Yeah, like, unfortunately, I can't think of one offhand. See, if they made a Transmetal Tarantulas, would they go with labeling it Beast Wars or Earthspark? Also, how was your day? So, I'll be honest with you, my day was crap. Things went south this afternoon, and my day was full of coping. Coping and trying to get my mood back where it needed to be. But if they do Tarantulas as a brand new one, as like a Transmetal, it would be Beast Wars. I don't think they're going to label anything as Earthspark. I think they consider Earthspark to be poison at the toy store, so they're going to avoid that. Let's see, off the top of your head, name 4 to 6 Autobots. Can include Subteams, Maximals, any series, no Optimus Prime, Bumblebee. Just 4 or 6 bots at random. I don't know why Beachcomber popped in my head at first. And then comes Trailbreaker, is obviously like very close to my head. Star Saber is very easy for my brain to come up with. Inferno came up for some reason. This is just the pinball that is my ADHD, just like spinning around in my brain, coming up. Ironhide, it landed on Ironhide, and then Hot Rod. Like, Hot Rod is where it was like, that's where it went into the actual, like, gutter at that point. Weird one, but I appreciate that. See, that's the kind of list I can come up with. Just, like, name 6. Just name 6 of them. Are you shocked that Transformers and Power Rangers haven't had a much crossover out of, like, a single role-playing game? Yes, because it's such an obvious thing to do, and no one has, it's crazy to me they never even tried. Like, give me a Megazord that's painted like Dinobots. Give me a set of, give me the Volcanicus set repainted as Dinozords. This is the easiest shoe-in I've ever seen in my life, and they've lost their shoes. It's a shoe-in where they've lost their shoes. I just did a video that just explains, like, here's its entire fanfic. Like, here's like what would make for a really good 4-issue comic book series that is just Power Rangers meet Transformers. And I think it's really freaking cool idea. I think I came up with some really cool freaking things in there. But yeah, like, it's mind-numbing. Mind-numbing. Favorite moment in WWE where Vince made a fool out of himself. I hate to give McMahon any credit because the man is a monster, but I will give him credit for not having any shame when it came to being entertaining. He's willing to do just about anything to get a reaction out of the audience. The favorite was when Stone Cold held him at gunpoint, and then right in the middle of the ring, Austin pulls the trigger. It's a bang flag, like he's the freaking Joker, and Vince wets himself live on TV. And as far as I'm aware of the history and the story, it was legit. It wasn't like a water bag that he triggered or anything, because no one was around to trigger it. He legitimately peed himself on national television for the sake of the bit. And that's about the last time I'm going to give any props to Vince McMahon. Like I said, he's a horrific human being. If TF1 Sentinel and Dark of the Moon Sentinel swap roles, how would you think it would have played out? Wow. Yeah, so, Dark of the Moon would have been about subjugating the Transformer race rather than the humans, which frankly would have made much more sense for that plot. TF1 like Dark of the Moon Sentinel in TF1? Keep in mind, he was about the preservation of Cybertron, so, like, I honestly don't think that's a universe where he would have been corrupted. Because I think he actually would have stood in defense of Cybertron at that point. I don't know, like I think that would have twisted things a little bit differently. Have you read Void Rivals? No. These days I have almost no free time, so, like, slotting in something extra like a full comic book run, that ain't happening right now. Do you think we'll ever have an inter-Transformer crossover in a series? Like, think of Cast of Armada with G1, Beast Wars and Bayverse, etc. Most likely not. It just doesn't seem like something Hasbro's ever been interested in. I think when it comes to their series, they don't see a lot of value in going back and retreading old ideas. They seem to like creating new things. And frankly, that's kind of what the franchise needs, is they need to inject something new that takes off and is really popular. I think a big problem the franchise has is that it's just too stagnant. You know, we've just had the same thing over and over for so long with no chance to refresh and regroup a little bit. Same thing we just talked about with the movies. It's oversaturation of the product. So yeah, we need something new. I think going back and retreading the old stuff, while there's fun ideas in crossing over different universes like that, you're probably never going to see it in a series. Do you play Marvel Rivals? If so, who is your main? Nope. Have never touched the game. It's not my style of game. Do you think that newer Transformer projects should introduce / be led by more female primes? I would absolutely go for a female prime or two here. I don't think it should be the lead of a Transformer project. I do want something fresh and new, but swapping out Optimus Prime and your lead character, that's probably not happening. I do still want Optimus Prime to be the main character, in the same way I always want Peter Parker to be Spider-Man. You know, switch it up once in a while, but, like, not as, like, as a whole brand new project, you know? I like the idea. I like the Cybertron idea of, like, multiple primes. Bring that back and give me some female primes. Establish a really good female prime instead of just coming up with one and going like, here's your lead character. Because we saw what happened with Hot Rod and Rodimus. Didn't go well when they just said, we're doing away with him. Here's your new guy. In a death battle like set, who do you think would win out? An Animorph, Beast Boy from Teen Titans, or Widget the World Watcher? It is the year of our Lord 2025, and you, sir, are bringing up Widget the World Watcher. I applaud you for a really deep cut. But the answer is Beast Boy. An Animorph can only take the form of animals they've come in contact with, which does severely limit them. Widget the World Watcher's transformations are a lot sillier. Beast Boy can transform into any animal whose DNA is encoded into his powers, which includes things like T-Rex, which I think immediately beats anything Widget or an Animorph could turn into. But Beast Boy also has monstrous forms from his DNA going wild on itself, which are even more powerful than that. So you have both. Yeah, you have both worries. It's definitely Beast Boy. At the moment, which Kamen Rider collectible do you prefer more? Gaia Memories or Progrise Keys? Oh my god, they're both really, really good. I think probably still Gaia Memories, because I think Gaia Memories make really nice, like, little, like, fiddle toys. More so than Progrise Keys. Though I do like the flip to a Progrise Key. I'm worried about doing it too much and breaking the function of the key. But I like how, like, Gaia Memories is just nice, simple. You hit a button, especially if it's a Gashapon, and you just keep hitting the button to get a whole bunch of noises out of it. That's more fun for me. Like I still like the Gaia Memory. I am still annoyed they did that set of 100 all at once. And like, I have a near complete set, and then you're going to do a set of 100 I can't possibly afford. How dare you ruin my collection like this? Company who has no interest in selling to the US. What's one term, subtitle, proper noun that you would like the franchise to just cut? Like, stop using, or come up with something new. De Bonaventura. I'd really like that cut from the franchise. If we're talking actual terminology, probably the term Voyager as a size class, because it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like, Deluxe, Leader, Commander, Titan, all work for me. What is a Voyager in this concept? What's a Voyager in this concept? Like, that made sense when the main toys you sold at that size class were ships. But, like, Voyagers imply exploration, and, like, I don't think the Inferno I bought as a Voyager class toy does much exploring as a fire truck, you know? I just want size classes to make sense in general. Just name them properly. Okay, see, a question, or the invisible boat. Okay, don't do this. Please do not do this. Don't, like, send time codes for me to check. I will not click on these, because it's going to take me away from the video. It's going to take me away from the recording. It's going to take me away from the list. And anytime I leave this list, YouTube could do a screwy thing and rearrange it, and I could start repeating questions or skipping people. So don't send me anything that's going to take me away from this page, please. So yeah, don't just do timestamp. Literally just give me the context of what you're talking about in the question. Like, otherwise, I can't do anything for you. If your hair is a triple changer, in addition to what you have right now, what two alt modes would they be? TJOmega's hair for a random review, maybe. No. This stays where it is. Stays where it is. So, if it had alt modes, it would be like all straight out frizzy, because that would be like a hilarious, like, sight gag thing. Or like ponytail. I would love to just like snap a finger and like my hair immediately goes back and like knots itself and just stays as a ponytail. That way, like, it's not hanging down when I'm trying to like paint a miniature or like working on something like a model kit or something, so it's not like flowing down over my face. It's like, that would work better for me. The most stupid question ever. What if Mandroid tames Unicron? You are asking the impossible, but also, that is the doom of the universe, because Unicron is a being of entropy. So he would be targeting things that are kind of due to be wiped out. If Mandroid took over Unicron, it'd just be like wanton destruction across the universe, starting with Earth. I notice I'm doing this like a routine, but I like interactions like this. Yeah, I like giving people the chance to interact with me directly here. That's why we do the Q&As every year. Or every month. Jeez. You can imagine if I waited a year for everything to build up? Do you think smaller scale brick transformers could work again if given the time for creativity? A lot of brick sets and toys have been popping off in recent years. I recently got back into brick brand called Q-Man. I've seen ones like that, I think. That made brick-based transformers and combiners, original inspired looking, that do not need to rebuild from scratch. They're really fun to switch between modes. Yeah, I've seen those, like the fakey transformer, like Lego bricky things. So, I mean, yes and no, because yes, those function, but they also don't look fantastic. And I think Hasbro would be really, really like fixated on making sure those looked as good as possible. It really depends. It really depends. You get away with it on Lyle Kaiser because Lyle Kaiser is like weirdly simplified when you're basing it off of G1. When you get into more complex designs, maybe not. I mean, anything with the right engineering at this point is probably possible, so it could be done. Recently started my Super Sentai journey with Q Ranger, and I'm enjoying it so far. I like Q Ranger. And I feel like I like Lucky a lot more than most people do. Other than Optimus Prime, Megatron, Hot Rod, and the cast of Beast Wars, which TF would you like to receive a power-up form? And I mean like an actually new form, not a combination with Power Master, Minicons, RDM Ultra Magnets, or Movie Jetfire. Something more like Super and Ultra Megatron. Shockwave. I think Shockwave with a proper super mode would absolutely be terrifying. Like a powered up Shockwave. I feel like Siege tried to give us that, and it just kind of felt like stuff cobbled onto Shockwave. But no, like, we could absolutely just like have like a proper super Shockwave that doesn't have to transform into a gun, make him a hover tank, make him a spaceship cannon type thing, and just like make him as threatening as he is in like some of the comic books. I didn't know if you had an answer to this question but if we were to get a new TF series where each of the characters are essentially amalgamations of their past, oh my god, long question. The past design is kind of like concept behind alternate biotech, but without the licensed vehicle modes and with new modes of amalgamations of all the past vehicles. Characters like Megatron is a triple change. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So, honestly, you're describing most Transformers shows right now. Almost every Transformers series we have gotten in the last 10, 15 years, maybe even 20, has just taken the old characters and remixed them with certain elements from past iterations. You know, some of the things you're talking about are way too complex. Some of the things you are talking about are way too complex to work. But the character stuff, like the design element stuff for standard Transformers, they basically already do that. So it's kind of redundant to try to like focus in on it. You'd basically just be making a normal series at that point. What do you think is the alt mode best suited for more whimsical stories? Whimsical. I mean, define whimsical. Like, I feel like everyone's version. I want the proper definition of whimsical. Playfully quaint or fanciful, especially in an appealing and amusing way. So, like, I feel like what's whimsical to people is very subjective. You know, like, when I think whimsical, I think, like, light fantasy stuff, you know? Like, give me, like, a Transformer unicorn or something like that. But what you would assume is whimsical might be completely different. You know, like, your whimsical might be the Disney type, where it's just talking animals in the woods waiting for a princess to befriend, right? Like that kind of thing. So unfortunately, I don't have like a solid answer for you. I would go with the unicorn because that's my idea of the whimsical. Which TMNT series do you think did the mutating gimmick the best? I mean, honestly, probably the OG. Like, there's a reason that engineering and even the mold was reused for so long on the Transforming Turtles. But you gotta remember, they did transforming toys a lot. You know, they did ones that turned into familiar vehicles. They did ones that turned into weird things. And honestly, the weird ones, like the turtles that turned into like jets and things, actually work surprisingly well. I actually want to get my hands on one or two of them to do a video on because I think some of them are kind of surprising. They're just expensive. Let's see. To make Soundwave's SUV alt mode more unique, how would you feel about his minions transforming into discs that double as tires? So that he can deploy them from his wheels like the tires that deploy from the Trideron from Kamen Rider Drive. You understand how small the tires are on an SUV. Thematically, that sounds cool. Practically, like, especially if you're trying to make a toy out of that, that's going to be a very, very small minion. Also, you are risking the function. Like, you're risking the function of the figure by limiting what it can do as a vehicle. So, I'm not necessarily sure that would work. Also, you'd have to quantify, like, how do they not get destroyed by being rolled on the ground at 60, 70 miles an hour? I think it's better right now the way it is. Like, either something tucked into the engine compartment or stored in the back of an SUV mode. I don't like the idea of the disc tires. I think there's too many, like, I think there's too many aspects to that don't work. Since you've been watching a lot of streamers lately, I was wondering if you watched a Twitch streamer name from Vinesauce called Varg Skeletor Joel. Nope, never heard of him. I've not heard the granddad meme either. So unfortunately, no, I can't help you there. Congrats with Magnetar. Really did the Tokusatsu vibes with the character. Thank you. I'm so disappointed that, like, Magnetar has been on hiatus for a couple weeks because I've had computer problems. I'm hoping they are all resolved now and that we'll be back to it very, very soon. Hopefully next week. Which, as of this video being posted, I mean tomorrow. How would you make a G1 Maximal Combiner and what would be the best name for it? This is again coming up with a cast of characters. So I really don't have one for you. Yeah, I'm trying to think of it right now. Like, yeah, you're asking me to come up with a cast, and like that's a no. That's a no on the list of questions. This is something I would have to put a lot of thought and research into, because offhand, there's barely any candidates for this, like Chain, Claw, Catilla, and that's basically it. You know, and like maybe I just have to start pulling in like others, you know, like Like, I might have to start pulling in, like, Snarler and explain why Autobots and Decepticons are getting along here. Yeah, like, there's just not enough... Like, there's just... This would take a lot more effort. This would take a lot of research. This is not something I can come up with in the Q&A format. I apologize. If there was a Transformers Thundercats crossover line, and I mean the 85 to 89 series, not the 2011 series, which I actually think... Is it 2011 or is it earlier than that? I think... Okay, never mind. What would be the Titan class figure in that line? I feel like that's apparent. It would be a Cat Slayer that actually transformed. Which would be the coolest thing ever. But also cooler is if you could transform it so that, like, similar to, like, Scorponok, like, it actually had, like, a full cat mode, because half of it's there already. You just need that bulk of the base to unfold into, like, rear legs, and then you just have a cat mode, and then you figure out the robot mode from there. It could end up looking like a big Cheetor. If you were to do a Minecraft Let's Play stream, how would Magnetar go about it for streams? So, unfortunately, I think it'd just be like standard Minecraft. I mean, I don't know how, like, I would specifically go about it if I do, like, Kamen Rider craft to kind of keep with the Tokusatsu theme. Or if I would just do, like, straight up Minecraft. So, the Minecraft I had the most fun with was, like, Skyblock. And this is the thing, like, I played, like, Skyblock 3, and I had a lot of fun with that, and then I didn't like how Skyblock 4 changed things, and I don't know if they've done a new mod for that since, but that'd probably be something along the lines of that. You're doing well with the hectic schedule. Also, like, I'd be more than willing to assist with the creation if you so desire. So... I appreciate it. I would appreciate it. But no, I appreciate the offer, but no. I like this being just all me. Also, YouTube, your AI is horrible, just like every other AI. I actually don't play games, so it's something I'd never do, despite the Magnetar channel where I play games all the time. And the PC, which has a gaming quality graphics card I just put in. And the Nintendo Switch, that's right here, right on my desk. And the Nintendo Switch 2, which I am paying, the pre-order is going to get charged any day now. But I don't play games, according to YouTube. What do you think about Rodimus being the first of a new generation of Primes? If Rodimus had some kind of interesting origin to how his creation worked, that would work for me. Like, we don't know, like, it's very vague how Transformers are created in G1. Sometimes you can just build them in your workshop, or sometimes you need to take, you know, a bunch of jets to Cybertron. You never know, right? So, like, it changes all the time. Grimlock can just make him out of scrap if he's smart enough. But, like, if Hot Rod himself had, like, a unique creation, like if he's like the first Transformer born of Cybertron itself, like the way that like they do in like IDW, where they're like sculpted from like living metal from the planet, then yes, then you have something a little bit more interesting. You know, or like he has a divine spark, like his spark was like bright yellow instead of blue, like something different. Let's see, out of the canceled BotCon 2017 Transform figures, which one you want the most? I haven't looked at them. I've never seen them, so I cannot answer that, unfortunately. When you inevitably contract Transformers sickness, who do you think you turn into? In case you've never heard it, it's a disease from the TF Legends manga that turns collectors of TF merch and toys into real Transformers. If you ever get a chance, try Bojangles. I love that restaurant. Let's not get into the weird restaurant names. Yeah, there was a Magnetar stream. It's somewhere in the VOD channel. Let's not mention it. Let's not talk about this anymore. I'm trying to think of who it ended up being. Like, I feel like it would be like almost like a Ninja Turtle thing, where like the one I was in the most contact with is the one that I would end up transforming into. So that would probably end up being like a Star Saber, a Blitzwing, you know, one of the more familiar ones. I mean, if it's recency, if it's recency, I'm gonna turn into Thrash. Yeah, like, I'm not entirely sure. But I am gonna say thank you for giving full context in your question and not just kind of leaving me hanging. Who would you make up your Autobot version of the Decepticons 9 Demon Generals from Zone? This is, again, a full cast of characters. Please do not ask me to come up with an entire roster of characters. I feel like I've said that in every video and people still think that, like, that's okay. Like, it just takes too long and it takes too much research. Like, if you're thinking, the easy answer to your 9 generals is just all the combiners and titans. That's it. Because that's what the generals did. That's what the 9 demon generals were. It's like not a... You know, that's basically it, right? Just combiners and city formers. Given how slow Hashtag has been in releasing a full cast of the current series, including new figures based on Armada, Micron, Densetsu, as much as I hate even suggesting it, do you think Hashtag should have their own equivalent of Premium Bandai, so there's at least some ways that people could complete the cast of their favorite shows and current lines? And again, now I know what Premium Bandai is, but thank you very much for actually having context. The hard part here, we have Generation Selects for this, and I feel like because those are online releases mostly, that is pretty much what Premium Bandai is. The difference is, with Premium Bandai, a lot of what they release is repaint, and a lot of what they release is retooled. But more importantly, it's mostly just action figure. Figuarts especially are all designed off the same buck, and things like the model kits have like similar core, like internal parts to them. So a lot of it is just reused material and assets. For Transformers to complete collections, especially if you take like, oh well, okay, so let's take a look at Armada, for instance, and we decide that, you know, let's say we decide that Armada Sideswipe is just not a toy that's going to work at normal retail because the character's not popular enough and the design's not good. So we're going to do it as Premium Hasbro. You're not going to be able to do that because every single figure would require a brand new mold, brand new engineering, and you'd end up with a HasLab situation where to get enough money off of a single run to make it viable, it would have to be very expensive, and you would have to tap FOMO to get people to buy it. So I think you just end up with the same situation that people get upset with HasLab. You just be doing it much more frequently. Transformers are far different than any other normal toy line. There isn't some universal core to them. You know, Marvel Legends, Figuarts, they all have the same, like, basic body, and then everything is sculpted into that. You know, Gundam models have the same internal core skeletons on a lot of their pieces. This Transformers, like, need to be done completely differently. They're all unique from each other. Yeah, I don't think that works. I really don't think that works. If anything, I think they're just being a little bit too scattered. They're trying to do too much at once, and I think that's where you're losing it. Like, we could just do a toy line where it's just Combiners and the Armada cast, and that's it. We don't dance around anything else. We don't throw in a random animated figure. We don't do the primes. We just keep a core focus on just 2 things, so there's variety on the shelves, but we're still pushing out the different lines. I don't know why they don't do it that way. I kind of do, because they want to keep a mix of G1 on shelves at all times. Nostalgia. You know. What kind of music do you listen to? It kind of varies. I mean, my music tastes go all over the place. My girlfriend picks on me because we do music quizzes, and the ones that I always pick out are Red Hot Chili Peppers. Which I guess that ends up being my favorite band, but like, I also listen to Gorillaz from time to time. I had my Linkin Park phase, like a lot of people did. There's a lot of new metal I like. And then like Weird Al. I'll listen to Weird Al anytime. So it's kind of all over the place. Hasbro did several toys based off the designs in Bumblebee, where the vehicle modes was whatever if needed to be in. Where the vehicle mode was whatever it needed to be to get an accurate robot mode. How would you feel if they did something like that for characters whose toys have historically failed to get a good robot mode, like Knockout from Transformers Prime? That would be completely acceptable to me. You know, like, okay, I don't really care too much about Knockout's car mode because his robot mode is so unique. So just come up with whatever vehicle works with that robot mode and make that the toy. Which is all I really, really want. You know? So, yeah, I could see that happening. And I would prefer it over how we got the last Knockout toy, which was just Jazz with new head. With the 13 Primes getting more attention and the last few Transformers series getting more focus on each specific member, which of the 13 would you choose to focus on? So, yeah, a lot of series tend to focus on just one, so it's kind of like who you gonna pick from, who's left. I think like Amalgamus or Nexus would be really interesting ones to focus a little bit more on, because, yeah, and you mentioned them too, Amalgamus or Nexus. It's either that, or I would love a series where, like, they take up from where G2 kind of hinted it was going and put Liege Maximo in as, like, a lead villain. Like, someone who is, like, I always talk about this, where Transformers needs a mid-level threat. Someone who is a threat between, like, Megatron and Unicron on the scale. Liege Maximo, I think, is perfect for that. You know, I would love to see him as, like, a lead villain. You know, like a returning Prime that's a threat to both Autobot and Decepticon. Also, to answer Jolster's question, Ella Forca is the Japanese repaint of the character Torka, the Fusor from Beast Wars here in America. Ella Forca is one of the Blentrons. It's one of Unicron's minions in Beast Wars 2nd, or Beast Wars Neo. Can't remember which offhand. But basically, it's the version that's super expensive because it doesn't have gold plastic problems. And I think it looks way better. Will Hasbro take another crack at Overlord? Almost certainly. I think Overlord is a great choice for our new smaller Titans. Especially because our smaller Titans will eventually also become a little bit smaller as budgets change. So I absolutely expect that to be done again. That said, like, I'm looking at the Titans Return one. I think the Titans Return one is actually pretty good itself. Like, I mean, probably due for an update, yeah, but I don't think they did such a bad job the last time. If Mattel and Hasbro made a Transformers Hot Wheels toy line, what would the story even be about? I assume it'd be something more based on like a high-speed, like Cybertronian race, or you know, or almost like a Speedia thing. You know, where it's like a race planet that has like the crazy Hot Wheels tracks on it. You know, and we have like loop-de-loops and magnetic tracks and like it's super crazy type of racing. That's probably the best way to go about it. Keep an incredible job you're doing, dude. Keep it up. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any character detail that can be considered iconic, but that requires a lack of time, requires fake kibble, or other types of transformation cheating for model accuracy, that you could think could simply be removed from newer character interpretations. Think Optimus grill abs or some car bot's hood or roof chest. So yeah, we do see this a lot. We do see this a lot, where like reimaginings of characters do manage to stick somewhat close to how the original character looked, but they do change some iconic piece of them in order to create a more unique take. A good example of that is like Prime Smokescreen, who does have elements of the G1 design, but obviously he's flat chest instead of like the front end of the car. So that could be done, like, and that has been done. But yeah, like you could do just about anything. As long as the character is still somewhat recognizable, you can play with just about any of their iconic details and mix it up in order to create a new version. And I even encourage things like that because sometimes we get really, really cool versions of the characters out of it. Let's see, if WWE or AEW were to do crossovers with Transformers, what wrestler and Transformer mold would work well with them? The only one that comes to mind right now is Megatron as Kane. By God, it's gotta be Kane. Oh, see, that's another one where I would have to really think about this, because there's a lot of possibilities. I'm trying to come up with one that's like right off the top of my head. This is like a spot on. This would work. No, geez, yeah, I'm really I'm struggling here. I would love to come up with something like really, really solid on this one. I mean, I'm trying to think of like characters that would work. Like you could do Sergeant Slaughter as any kind of hound mold. You know, just to put the military thing across on there. Like any of those hokey gimmicks. There were just like a profession but wrestler. You know, Big Boss Man could be a Prowl mold any day of the week. Things like that. I'm trying to think of something that's like more fun than that. Like who would The Undertaker be? I need someone really tall and imposing. And right now, there's not a lot that's coming to mind when I think of that. But no, like, that's again, like, that's... I hate that one of the ideas I came up with for AEW was, like, the Young Bucks as the Skids and Mudflap ice cream truck. Just split apart, transform, and super kick things. Which superhero has the better rogues gallery, Batman or Spider-Man? So Spider-Man's rogue gallery is filled with a bunch of characters who are like, I have this animal as my powers, which kind of feels a little derivative at some point. It feels like his is much more menagerie based. Batman, I think Batman has the more interesting ones because they're a lot more cerebral. You know, and they have to be clever. They have to be smarter than Spider-Man. Spider-Man's are just overpowering. For Batman, even Bane, who is thought to be like his most powerful villain, is still incredibly smart and calculating. You have to be against Batman, and I think that makes them more interesting. Also, one of my favorite comic book villains of all time is amongst Batman's cast, and that's the Riddler. Someone who's obsessed with proving they're smarter than Batman. Interesting to me. Can you name a premium price or even Holy Grail tier repaint of a bargain bin or flea market tier figure? What toy got a really good repaint despite how bad the original figure was? That is tricky. That's tricky. That would take a lot of thought and research. Like the worst, that's a whole video. Amy, I'll tell you this, like that's a whole video. Like I keep meaning to like have a piece of paper like ready to go for something like this. I thought I had a stack of, hang on. I thought I had a stack of paper around here somewhere for this. Hey, no. Do I? No, I don't. Crap. No. I like that idea, though. Jeez, I like that idea, though. No, that's not gonna work. I tried to draw it on the back of a Super Mario action figure card. That doesn't work. I gotta remember that somehow. Just open a notepad. What am I doing? Best repaints of worst toys. Okay. Because, like, I'm trying to think of, like, the bottom of the bottom tier figures. Like, the ones that I know absolutely are, like, Plastic Addict level. Like, this is absolutely a horrendous piece of plastic. I'm trying to think back to the Plastic Addict list. And I'm trying to come up with, like, who was a really bad toy but ended up looking super cool when they got a new paint job. And I'm blanking. I am blanking right now. Yeah, come back to me in like a couple weeks, because I'm probably going to run that through the gray matter and come up with something way more detailed and interesting. Probably a lot more examples as well. Also, you might have heard some kind of beep there. I apologize for that. Yeah, hang on. Like, yeah, I was just I unplugged my phone from the computer because I got some kind of message. Hang on, just making sure. Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. Okay, sorry about that. Do you think Optimus Prime is a Home Depot or Lowe's guy? He kind of does give off like the dad energy that goes to Home Depot. Not gonna lie. What is more important to you for a new iteration of a character? Faithfulness to the original design or faithfulness to the characterization? Absolutely the characterization. Like, you can play with it a little bit, you know, to come up with different twists on things. But, yeah, I prefer playing with the design. You know, I prefer the different takes on these characters to have elements that stand out to them, you know? So, yeah, I would much rather the designs change and the characterizations mostly stay the same. For a crossover, how about an Age of the Primes Armada Sideways with minicons that make them a Kamen Rider figure? Let's see, monthly reminder that you wanted to do a video remaking BotCon sets with modern molds. So, yes, I'm starting to do that. I am starting to do that. We did a little bit of that, and I need to do, like, an entire series of them. But as far as, like, a Kamen Rider crossover figure, like, the bike would have to be something that matched the others. And, like, the hard part is most Kamen Riders ride a dirt bike. So coming up with one that would fit the sideways mold would be the tricky part. Also, I'm not entirely sure what you would do about that Headmaster gimmick. Because, like, there's no Kamen Rider I can think of, like, at least a lead Kamen Rider who has those big leg horns hanging off their head. That would be the little tricky part about it. I think the most clever thing you could do with that concept, I mean, you could potentially get away with doing the original Kamen Rider with it. That's the other hard part, is like finding a bike that actually matches the color scheme and design of the Kamen Rider enough to actually work as a repaint for that. But the fun part with Ichigo is that, like, early episodes he had the black helmet, later on he had the teal one. That'd be the great way of reusing the minicons for that. But you still get, like, because, like, his bike does not look like his armor whatsoever. And if you just transform that bike the way it does for Sideways, it ain't gonna work. So that's actually a really tricky concept to come up with. Favorite Herald of Unicron. There's been a ton of them, haven't there? It would probably end up being, like, define Herald, because, like, Galvatron, kinda, but, like, character and design-wise, I like Cyclonus better. But Heralds of Unicron span a lot of things, you know, like, design-wise, I love Beast Wars the second Galvatron. He was Unicron's Herald in Beast Wars Neo, so things like that come to mind. We'll see. I'm not entirely sure. I would have to really think about that. Those are the ones that come off the top of my head. I hate to just say, yeah, Galvatron. But kinda. Yeesh. Okay, do you like the idea of having Sentinel Prime always be more villainous, or would you like to see the idea of Sentinel that was either overwhelmed trying to manage the corruption of the Senate, or was more just the wrong person for the job? So, the thing with Sentinel Prime, the consistent thing with Sentinel Prime is that he was the leader before Optimus Prime. So it really all depends on the story that you're telling in that universe at the time. So, as my voice is trying to give out, this is why I didn't scream earlier. So, when you're thinking about this, it really depends. Sentinel can be either just he can be just like an upstanding leader who just wasn't up for handling Megatron. He could be trying to rile a corrupt Senate. He could be focused on, like, like the prosperity of Cybertron and being dubious in the cost. It really just depends on the story you're telling. And I hate to make it like, oh, it depends on the story, but it really does. It really depends on the story. I could take either Sentinel. And preferably, I'm still the guy who's after a G1 Sentinel Prime toy, like the one that was in the flashback from 5 Faces of Darkness. So eventually I need just like a Sentinel Prime who's like a good guy, so I can finally get that toy. But yeah, it all depends. Webcam TJ is back. Yay! Still not exactly the way I want it, but it works. What is your opinion on a Superman Transformer that turns into a jet and a bird? That's funny. That's funny. You're a funny person. So, I can even imagine how this happens. Like, you could literally just design the transformation so that, like, to transform it, like, the jet just flips over and the bird details are underneath, and you just transform it out to be more accurate. How would the Doomslayer react if he met Charlie from Hazbin Hotel? I don't think how nice Charlie is matters. It's a denizen of hell. Doomslayer's going to rip and tear. Like, there is no innocent bystander in hell to the Doomslayer. Do you think that McDonald's should bring back their small Transformers that were shaped of their food? Absolutely. Absolutely, those were the best Happy Meal toys they ever did. I would destroy my health trying to get the entire set. But no, that is absolutely something I wish they would do. Do all the new food items, come up with different transformations, make them proper robots instead of the little gimmicky things. Or make them the little gimmicky things still, I don't care. No, I love those. That's why I did a whole video on, like, reviewing every single one of them. I love the changeables. Transforming model kits have been a thing for a long time. Okay, let's see. Comments. Mark your comments, please. When do you think we'll get... when do you think we'll ever get the Guiding Hand and other members of the Covenant as toys? Because we got Scorpius, could we possibly get Geminator or out of Cyberverse Rack and Ruin? The Guiding Hand is so obscure, though. Like, I'm going to TF Wiki right now to look it up. Because it's just... Yeah, that's such a deep cut. That's such a deep cut. I'm gonna be like really upfront with you. We're probably never getting them. I don't think it's possible for us to get the guiding hand. They're just too small of a footnote from just like too obscure of it. It looks like this goes like super deep into IDW territory. And like, yeah, like I don't think this would happen. I don't think this would happen. I mean, you might get like the modern depictions. Like I could imagine like an Adaptus at some point. You know, let's see. Yeah, I'm just clicking through. You just get this right. Like Solomus played a bigger part. You'd get that. Yeah, but I don't think you're getting Mortalus. Yeah, like it's. Yeah, I think that's too deep of a cut. I think it's a little bit too deep of a cut. Have you ever had Indian food? Actually, no. Actually, no. And I figure, and I'm probably going to be that person that just orders the butter chicken just to play it as safe as possible. I'm gonna be real with you. How'd you make the Transformer franchise absolutely awful for no reason? Let Bonaventura do the cartoon. There you go. I just like chances to dig on De Bonaventura. That's basically how this goes. If Bumper did intentionally get put into a G1 line where the line started up, how would Bumper, assuming be solo Bumper, this is hypothetical, affect the franchise as a whole, short term or long term? So, unfortunately, I don't really think he would have that much impact. Let's be honest here. Outside of like an occasional episode that focused on them, you know, like Beachcomber, Beachcomber, Warpath, Gears, like those are characters who had episodes devoted to them. But like the year 3 cast of Minibots, none of them had episodes devoted to them except for Wheelie. When it comes to like other ones, like Cosmos is always a bit player, but it's, you know, but he was always like sidelined when the episodes focused on him. He was never like the guy. Like Brawn did not have his own episode. Windcharger had episodes with moments, but he never had like a dedicated Windcharger episode. Huffer never had an episode, you know. So I feel like Bumper would just be lost in the mix, just like all the rest of them. I don't think he really would have had that kind of impact. Any ideas for a has-been Helluva TF crossover toy? It would probably have to be the Imp van, because honestly, there's not a lot of vehicles that are recurring in those shows. So that would probably be the best bet. And unfortunately, you'd have to work in some kind of gimmick where you could collapse the front like it got crashed, because that's what happens to that every single time. How would you feel about Shatter being a duocon? Okay, so like Shatter getting the jet and the car because they're a duocon, that's actually not a bad solution. Like, I'm gonna be real here, that's not a bad solution, because like you could make the upper body still work as the jet mode, because like the big feature of the upper body is the thrust, is like the jet engines and the wings hanging down, and you could just make a fake chest that has the car details, but then the car is all the legs, and it'd be the underside of the car, so it still has like the moving mechanical look. Yeah, that's actually not a bad solution. I actually like that. TJ, do you think one of the reasons why Earthspark is flopping as a toy line is due to character selection, i.e. having too many evergreen characters eating the slots of the new main characters and not having many interesting toys until recently with the likes of Soundwave, Jawbreaker, and Aftermath? That is part of it, but keep in mind, so here's the thing I always try to get people to keep in mind. Hasbro is not selling directly to you. Hasbro is always selling to the big store. And the big store does not want to have, like, a new wave of Transformers become available to them. And the names are like Hashtag, Thrash, Aftermath, Spitfire. No one working at Walmart knows who these characters are. No one working Target knows who these characters are. They don't care. They want the household names: Optimus, Megatron, Bumblebee, Starscream, Grimlock, Soundwave. They want the huge characters in there that are known by everyone. You know, the casual fan characters. They need to see those in the assortments in order to be interested in stocking those assortments. So they need to have those in there. I honestly think the reason the Earthspark toy line flopped is because, A, Paramount treated the show very, very badly. You know, Paramount Plus is a terrible streaming service, so that likely didn't do it favors. And on Nickelodeon, its time slot kept bouncing around. That hurts the show a lot. But beyond that, I think the toy line looked terrible. I think just way too many really cheap, really bad looking figures that just makes the entire toy line look not fun and not interesting. If they came up with things like the Cyber Combiners, like the ones that had the Energon gimmick, if they came up with that way earlier and made that a featured line of the series, I think that would have looked way better. I think that would have helped a lot more, because that's a lot more fun. To your point, though, there is way too much repetition of certain characters. You know, like, I love Twitch, but my god, Twitch had so many toys compared to, like, Hashtag, who barely got any. You know? So, yeah, there's definitely a balance issue with the toy line as well. If you could pick one Micromaster to be turned into a Titan, which would it be? Why are we doing that? Why are we turning a Micromaster into a Titan? Oh my god. Once again, I have to go to the fact that I really don't have Micromasters programmed into my brain to come up with this. So, unfortunately, like, I don't have an answer for this one. I genuinely don't. We kind of did this with Countdown because they merged Countdown with the Omega Supreme. And you'd probably have to go that same route in order to get a Titan. I think what you're really asking me is, would it be cool to get a Micromaster toy that's just like a really, really big Transformer? And in that case, yeah. How powerful would a combiner made of Matrix bearers be? So that really depends, because we don't know if the Matrixes would actually get along. Now, if they were compatible, if they could energize, yeah, that would be potentially very, very powerful. But not every Matrix out there is tappable for power. You know, like, the Autobots never use the Matrix of leadership, you know, to, like, fuel Energon cubes or anything. It's like, but then again, you have Cyberverse Optimus Prime, who used it like Iron Man's Unibeam. So, like, it depends. Not every Matrix is a source of power. Not everyone can be utilized like that. I imagine they'd be powerful because Matrix bearers tend to be some of the most powerful Transformers. But yeah, like, probably you're probably talking to, like, the most powerful combiner. Simply put. You are the first YouTube channel I subscribed. Thank you very much. Thank you for following along. I'm glad you're here. Rare non-TF question. You've informed us a lot of your love of classic Mega Man and X, but I'm curious, what is your experience or thoughts about the rest of the franchise? Zero, ZX Legends, Battle Network, Star Force. So, you'd love to see Magnetar play them on the Legacy Collection. I haven't played ZX in a long time, and I don't think I ever finished ZX Advent, so that would not be a bad idea. So, just to go over this. So, Mega Man Zero, I really do like. I think the story of Zero is really strong. Maybe the gameplay might be a little bit too hard. It's hard for me to sit down and enjoy it the same way I do X. ZX I really do like as well. I'm really sad that ended after only 2 because I felt like they could have tapped a lot more out of that. Legends, I love Mega Man Legends. I love both of the Mega Man Legends games. I even like Tron Bonne. I'm one of those who is still in pain because they canceled Legends 3. I'm still upset to this day that they canceled Legends 3. Battle Network I enjoyed for like 3 installments, but once I got to number 4, I lost interest because, one, I didn't really like that they were trying to force a Pokemon-esque aspect into it with the exclusive chips and bosses. I felt like splitting them into 2 versions was 100% unnecessary. But also, it just kept feeling too much the same, you know? Like, the gameplay just felt way too much the same. Like, different power-ups and different gimmicks just didn't help it. I just felt like I felt like I played the exact same game over and over and over again. In a way that, like, because the gameplay is always the same, not in a way like Mega Man X, or like Mega Man, like standard classic, because there's always new platform challenges, there's always new gimmicks to the levels, so I'm always playing it in a different way. But with Battle Network, it was mostly just power-ups. But the gameplay, the 9 grids, and the dodging of like enemy shots, and the lining up, and all that, that's all exactly the same. I got very bored of it after 3 attempts. So, like, number 4 I never finished. I don't think I ever played 5 or 6. And then Star Force did absolutely nothing for me. It looked like I was going to play the exact same games I was already sick of, except instead of having 9 grids to work with, I only had 3. I did not like the change to gameplay style in that one. It kept the most boring element to me, and the new element it added in just wasn't interesting enough. Let's see, hello once again, Tommaso Ciampa. If you got everything from your Holy Grail list, and I do mean everything, would there even be a Holy Grail left? There's always a Holy Grail left, but by that measure, I would get that as well, meaning this would be a never-ending flow of toys. Which, hey, whatever genie I can ask granting that wish, I'm down. But yeah, there's always going to be something that counts as like a Holy Grail, a toy I never got to have. I think as this list just grows, as like more and more stuff from this list comes in, it's just going to get more daring, you know? Like, there is a somewhere in the world, because it was given away as a prize, there is a one-of-a-kind Galaxy Force, Galaxy Convoy, Cybertron Optimus Prime, in green. Because it was a prize given away to a kid who, like, came up with the color scheme as a coloring sheet. Only one exists, and because it was such a precious gift, I'm willing to bet the parents preserved it. I'm willing to bet it still exists. It will probably never hit the collector's market. But if it's on my Holy Grail list, you say I get it. Okay, would you rather HasLab do a trio of Overlord, Sky Shadow, and Six Shot, or Diatlas Trio? Absolutely Diatlas Trio. That's big powered, by the way. I don't like the idea of Overlord, Six Shadow, and Six Shot. That seems like a really random list of characters. Keep in mind, Six Shot did not coexist with Sky Shadow and Overlord. They're from completely different series. Like, by the time Overlord was around, Six Shot had already become Great Shot and joined the Autobots. Supposedly. It's always weird how all that works. No, I would much rather the trio be characters who make sense together. Like, those 3 you named are all cool characters individually, but it makes no sense to put all 3 of them in the same box. The big powered group absolutely HasLab that. I would be down for that. Because Hasbro used retail molds for HasLab, do you think it's possible to use HasLab molds for retail? Probably not. Hasbro has been approached about this. They haven't ruled it out. But keep in mind, every HasLab so far has been designed with being an exclusive in mind, meaning at retail level, they really wouldn't work within their current price points, and it's important to them to keep those price points. It causes trouble if they add something new to it. So, no, I think they would want to keep them as special as possible because they need to keep the appeal of HasLab. If they start repainting them and sending them to retail, then there's nothing special about the first versions anymore. At least not really. I think they just wanted they want to create a premium line. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, so Gregory, I'm going to tell you, don't start bringing up religion. Don't start bringing up religion. This is not the place. Do you think if once Hasbro redoes the Protectabos, they'll try to retroactive Sunbow version of either Megatronia or Victorion from Vortex Breakdown, Wild Rider, and the hypothetical Hotspot and Blades? Potentially. That's absolutely an option, but it will absolutely depend on how they combine. So I'm willing to bet that by the time we get to Hotspot, they're going to work, the combination system is going to work differently than it's going to do for Wild Rider and Vortex. Yeah, like that's a huge if. Like they have to be compatible with each other, and I'm not convinced they're going to be. I feel like Onslaught and Hotspot are both going to work differently than Motormaster and Silverbolt. So I think we're in for something different. So that's going to be a huge question mark on that. Which Autobot do you think would, in a post-war scenario, would end up with their legs missing and their car mode missing the back half? Oh my god. Morbid. So, for the sake of giving an answer, let's say Ironhide, because I think he's a little bit more gung-ho than Cup, who's being suggested in the end. And yeah, like, he's played that character of, like, the veteran who might be past his prime type. And I think that's where that kind of characterization sticks in. But that's still kind of a twisted idea, because, like, they're Transformers. They can repair their legs. You know, it's not like in our universe where, like, once your legs are gone, you're done. No, like, they just build new ones. I'm hoping they retool Megatronus into Studio Series 86 Megatron. Joke's on you, Energon. They did something way better. And they didn't need to retool Megatronus to do it. I'm going to be real with you. Megatronus retooled into Megatron would have made an absolutely awful, terrible take on 86 Megatron. The proportions, the shape, none of it would have worked. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm super happy with what they did. What is it that warmed you up to VTubers until finally becoming one yourself with Magnetar, since you used to be iffy on them? Did I used to be iffy on them, Ben? You keep tracking me fairly well. It was Iron Mouse. It was like discovering Iron Mouse and seeing how much she goes through and still manages to be one of the most successful and entertaining VTubers in the world. Like, all of her illnesses and her debilitations, and she still manages to be that successful. Incredibly inspiring. Incredibly inspiring. And then I start coming across other VTubers I really liked seeing. And then I find out there are VTubers that are fans of my channel, and I get to know them. You know, like Red Claw's a good friend of mine now. He's been on the channel. Oh yeah, like it's just a matter of just like finding the right one as an entry point. That's basically it. What are your thoughts on the Transformers DS games? So, I assume you mean the movie ones. I enjoyed them for what they were. Like getting to like do a little bit of custom work to create your own, that's cool. Playing the Decepticon one and taking orders from Keith David, that's really cool. They were actually competently designed. They're like I think there was like surprising that they were actually really good. If you could go back in time to save one Autobot from the live-action movies, which one would you save between Jazz, Cliffjumper, or Ratchet? I don't care about any of these characters because they're live action. I guess Ratchet, because I don't think it makes sense for characters in a war setting to go without a medic. And you'll notice once Ratchet died, they didn't exactly have anyone take his place. There wasn't anyone who was good at repairs that was left. Kind of a necessary thing. Hmm. Let's see. Would a quintuple change your figure work? Absolutely. As it's already been pointed out, there's been figures with way more modes than that, so dropping it down to 5, yeah, that's pretty doable. Would you love a future Transformers series in which the 13 Primes temporarily appear in the present and assist the humans, Autobots, and Decepticons in facing a massive threat that isn't Unicron? I feel like one of the, as mentioned before, I think one of the 13 would be the massive threat. Because remember, even if you exclude the 13th Prime, you still have Liege Maximo and Megatronus in that list. Both of them would be major antagonists. So, I don't think they would help. I don't think they would come in and help. I mean, I would like a series that explores the 13 more, but I kind of like how they're doing it with, like, every series makes one of the 13 special. I kind of like how they did that. Do you agree that the goofiness of Challenge of the GoBots is overblown and was no goofier than some of the really childish episodes of G1 Transformers? I would agree with that, especially because GoBots got away with doing some kind of dark things from time to time. I think the general goofiness mostly just comes from the overall look of the cartoon, like rather than the tone and the characters. So yeah. What real movie or TV prop would you love to own in your collection? Oh my god. And I'm staring and I see who's asking this question. I would need a lot of thought on that one. Because I've thought about this in the past of like, hey, if I had the budget for it, what would I actually want made out of like what? Because I love the idea of like prop stuff, you know, like I do have a really strong fascination with like owning things that are like props from movies, etc., movie TV shows, etc., like having the thing the characters had. You know, that's actually super cool to me, you know, and that's, I think, why role-play toys are still, like, very special to me. Like, thinking about it, like, it would have to be something, like, specially unique, right? So, like, I wouldn't think of, like He-Man or, or Lion-O swords, because there are versions of those you can get. You know, pretty much any fantasy video game sword I can get at any medieval fair / anime convention at this point. I'd have to put some real thought into that. Like, offhand, I can't think of anything that's like, oh, that would be super cool. Oh my god, that'd be super cool to have. Yeah, unfortunately, it's blanking right now. Like, I mean, I'm looking around, trying to figure out, like, an idea of it. I'm like, it's nothing's coming up. It might also be the fact that it's currently 4 in the morning. It might be the fact that it's 4 in the morning. And I can't think of anything offhand. But, like, dude, you know how to hit me up. You can ask me anytime you want. Like, I'd have a better answer if I not answering it in the middle of the night as rapidly as possible. Have you been enjoying Monster Hunter Wilds? So, I don't own a PS5. My system for playing new games is my PC. I just put in a new graphics card. The previous one probably would not have been able to play it. But also, the Steam version of the game, last I checked, does not run great. So I have had to hold off on it. And I hate that I hold off on it because all my friends played the game. They've already kind of run their cycle of the game and they're not playing anymore. So I got left out of a lot of hunting parties that I wanted to be part of. Yeah, I haven't played it yet. I will play it as soon as I get the chance. Would you like to see Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp's alt modes be Formula 1 race cars? So if you asked me how to get the Seekers into alternators, this is how I would have done it. As Formula 1 cars, you could keep some aspects of their silhouettes. You could make them look familiar, but they would still fit in with the overall motif and scale. So, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. I think it's better than what Alternity did, which is just, like, here's 3 super expensive cars that have nothing to do with the Seekers. Let's see, since it seems like Generation Selects has been very dry with releases, what characters would you like to see in the line? The line has so much potential to bring us characters that never gotten any Generations figures or any figures at all. Selects gets very picky because they generally deal in just repaints and things like that. I think it's an ideal spot for a lot of things like Power Links figures, like Power Links Red Alert would have to happen at some point. That feels like a Selects. And as a Selects, you could also get away with throwing in as Minicon, because a Selects release can be whatever price point they want. Beyond that, let's see, you could do like a US toy version of Wheeljack and include his Minicon as well. You could get away with that. I think I've said, multiple times, I say, BotCon based characters can be done that way. That's a really good use of Selects. I think Selects just gets overused for things like Diaclone figures, because Diaclone never sells well. It's just too unfamiliar to American audiences. Yeah, there's definitely room and potential. If we ever get Cyclonus and Demolishor, Selects 2-pack of their Energon colors. Absolutely. And you could also do the same with their Power Links colors. Twofer. Which group of monsters in Tokusatsu have your favorite designs? Jeez, that gets tough to think of. See, the default in my brain is the Mighty Morphin monsters, but those are just the first ones I grew up with, so that doesn't work. But I really like the motif that they're all based on, fairy tales and storybooks and mythology, you know? The superhuman samurai monsters I always thought were really, really cool designed. That would probably be my favorite ones, because some of my favorite monster designs all come from that. And I loved how they took the Ultraman aspect of it to make them more unique. Because you had, 4-legged monsters, you had, big burly ones, but you also had sleek ones as well. The variety of monster, I think, was more interesting. They stood out just by being different kaiju designs, rather than being, weird gimmicky things. You know, this monster has a purse for a head. Scheduled Conflicts fan returns. What about Tor's character development, other than his relationship with Pain, has surprised you the most? So, that's the fun thing about characters who kind of evolve over time. I'm kind of surprised at how much Tora has matured. I didn't anticipate that. I kind of wanted him to be like jokey and jovial the whole time, and he is jokey and jovial. But he's actually grown with the stakes quite a lot. Yeah, I think the maturity level of him surprised me the most. Like, he's grown as a character a lot. You know, someone who is a slacker to somebody who actually is willing to, like, put the work in. See, do you wish the underbase was ever used in TF media outside of the Marvel Comics? It is kind of bizarre that something that's that famous amongst fans, yeah, something that famous amongst fans has not been reused. It would be cool. I wouldn't mind seeing the underbase again. Okay, if you do this, you can't, I believe you can just go, you should be able to just delete your own comment. So, like, you don't need to double post like this, I don't think. Also, it seems like all you did was leave out the word question. You don't have to do that. Like, at the very least, I just ask people mark comments more than anything. Do you think a Transformers Rob Zombie crossover collaboration figure, aka Dragula, as a retool of the Hot Wheels Bone Shaker crossover collab toy could work? It's been a long time since I saw that weird car he was driving in the Dragula music video, but, I mean, potentially. I think Rob Zombie is probably a really poor fit for Transformers. Because it's a lot more mature of a tone than they typically go for, but, like, you might. You might. It wouldn't be a bad idea as a Bone Shaker retool, if they could get away with that. Keep in mind, Mattel might have to be cool with that too. So that's a big trick right there. Let's see, let's see here. What would be your ideas for Shatterglass, Thundercracker, and Skywarp's personalities? What would their dynamic with Starscream be? I mean, they'd probably get along a lot better. You know, they probably would genuinely be friends rather than, like, Starscream just getting the boss around his clones. It's hard because Skywarp doesn't have much personality. He's supposed to be like a practical joker, but they never really show that in anything. Yeah, I feel like Skywarp would take things a lot more seriously. Like, he'd be like the no-nonsense seeker. And Thundercracker would have to be the one that Starscream keeps in line because he's pushing it too far. Like, he is the one who doesn't know why they're wasting their time saving humans. Like, he almost has like the movie Autobot mentality of like why are we bothering here? Why are we bothering with these lower beings? Like, he'd be elitist. Like he'd be very like elitist and like kind of need to be reined in to stay a good guy. Why is it taking so long for Activision and Hasbro to release the Cybertron games on modern consoles? There is like rumblings of that happening. I have not heard anything of it in months though, because like this gets slow. Development on these kind of things takes a long time. And there's a lot of licensing involved, especially with the original creators of that game. So, you know, because Activision owns the code, but like there's royalties and things that get annoying in re-releases like that. What would be your dream Transformers play set? I'd like to really have like a Micromaster set that's the Quintesson Pit. I would love to have a Judgment Pit play set that was Micromaster scaled. So I have like the Micromaster Hot Rod from Star Convoy. I have him there. And then I'd have a little cup that goes with him. And Sharkticons. And Sharkticons can be done small. I have the Cyberverse tiny ones. I have hordes of those things. So it would be those. And I'd have like a whole throne set up and the stairs and everything for like my Quintessons, my bailiffs, all that. And the prosecutor. And then I'd have the pit itself. Obviously, I can't fill it full of water. Obviously, I can't fit it full of water. So what I would end up having is I would end up having just like a cover so I can see like everything underwater. I would have like little stems I could attach the Sharkticons to, so it looks like they're floating around in there. But then I would also have the spinner, which would just allow me to just spin Cup and Hot Rod around it and like whirlpool the thing. That would be my dream play set. They never make it because it's such a specific thing, but I think it sounds fun. Would you be interested in doing a playthrough of any Transformers game that's still available as Magnetar? Possibly. Possibly. It really depends on the games. Like, the games that are good are not available or I've already done. So, like, I can't do the Armada game. Well, I technically could. I own the Armada game. I'd have to dig out my PS2 and hook it up to all the converter stuff. I have the converter stuff. I could potentially do that, now that I think of it. If I can find all my original PS2 hardware. I don't even know where my controllers are right now. Beyond that, like, I've got the Earthspark game. It's terrible. I keep meaning to do that as like a rainy day video. Just like, I played it so you don't have to type situation. But yeah, like, I wouldn't mind... See, like, I wouldn't mind doing a playthrough of a Transformer game, but I wouldn't do it as Magnetar because the whole point of being Magnetar is to force that separation between TJOmega, the Transformer guy, and what I want to do as a streamer. Because, like, don't go to Magnetar to tell me about the Transformer toy you just got, or ask me a Transformer question. Magnetar, in character, will ignore that because he's not about that. And I don't want the character to be about that. You're here to talk about Transformers. If I'm over there, I want to do something different. So, frankly, ultimately, probably no. I would probably never do anything Transformer-based with Magnetar. That just... No. That would not happen. That defeats the point. And the first one is, ha ha ha, I'm first. And I am deleting you. Because I delete literally every first comment on my videos. That one should not have slipped through. No one cares that you're first. You don't get a trophy. You don't get a cookie. It doesn't impress me. If you're in my comments section, comment on the video. Reply to somebody to start a conversation. Be constructive. Be part of my community. Don't just go, burst. No one cares. You're not special. So, if you're going to post, make it mean something. And with that admonishment, we are done with this month's Q&A. So, if you've got a question for next month's Q&A, please leave it in the comments below. Mind all of the rules we mentioned at the top of the video. And as always, I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.